Good morning. My name is Heidi Swan. I'm an independent contractor with Every Brain Matters, a nonprofit organization. But today I'm speaking as an individual, as an American who is very concerned about the misinformation out there about THC. THC is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. The silence about the harms is one of the reasons that I wanted to attend the Bryn Spacer trial. Have you heard that THC increases the risk for anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, psychosis, schizophrenia? If you haven't heard this, why haven't you heard this? Bryn Spacer was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in the killing of her friend, Chad O'Melia. It was determined by both the defense and the prosecution that she was in acute cannabis-induced psychosis. The evidence that I saw in the courtroom was horrific and agonizing. It was testified that this was one of the grisliest crime scenes ever seen in Ventura County. Chad O'Melia died from stab wounds to the chest and the abdomen. He suffered over 100 cut wounds. Bryn Spacer was in such deep hallucinations that she stabbed her own service dog, and she was plunging the knife into her own throat when the peace officers broke in, and they were wearing body-worn cameras. The camera footage showed that they had to beat her with a baton, they had to tase her to get the knife out of her hands. And it also showed that she was completely unaware of their presence, and she was responding only to the voices in her own head. The prosecutor said that Bryn Spacer would have died by suicide without the intervention of the officers. One of my tasks at Every Brain Matters is to help Bryn Spacer fulfill her probation hours. And Bryn Spacer will tell you that if she knew that THC could cause hallucinations, cause a person to act on their hallucinations, cause them to become violent, she would never have tried it. So this tragedy was 100% preventable. And this is something that is very personal to me, because I have been trying to reach people like Bryn Spacer, like Chad O'Melia, since 2017, just months before this tragedy occurred. You see, I wrote the first historical fictional story illustrating that marijuana, THC, can cause mental health problems. It's called A Night in Jail. Using A Night in Jail as a platform, I have been going around to public officials, to public health organizations, mental health organizations, trying to get them to educate that THC can do this. And I can tell you firsthand that overall, most of the time, the harms about THC are being withheld, intentionally withheld from the public. The most egregious example that I can think of is the California legislature. I volunteered for 2 bills with them to put common sense protections on THC products. The first was to put mental health warnings on products, similar to like what we have on tobacco products. And then the other was to put some protections around THC candies so that toddlers wouldn't mistake these highly psychoactive products as something that they would get from a snack bag. Both bills failed. They failed due to pressure from the industry. So we have no protections in California at all. And in fact, the expert at the Bryn Spacer trial testified that California rolled out legalization without any regard for public health. So you can see that this is pretty much a catch-22 situation. There are no warnings about the mental health side effects, but defendants, like Bryn Spacer, are told by the courts that they should have known. They should have known that THC could cause her to become psychotic and violent. So if we are going to prosecute people for the crimes that they commit, the violence that happens while they're in cannabis-induced psychosis, then we darn well better be sure that we have a decent public health education about it. We educate people about the harms of alcohol, the harms of tobacco. Can you imagine having Lung Cancer Awareness Month and not mentioning the dangers of cigarette use? Well, that is exactly what's happening today with THC marijuana. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And in the worst addiction and mental health crisis in our country, who is telling you that the drug most linked to mental illness is THC? To help right this wrong, I suggest that we set aside one day in the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and make it THC Mental Illness Side Effects Day to help educate the public. Because if our leadership continues to stay silent about the mental health harms of THC, then who do the young people hear from? All they hear is from the cannabis industry, which is providing a lot of misinformation, not dissimilar to big tobacco of 50 years ago. To protect our country from more violence, from more death, like what happened in the Bryn Spatier trial, we must educate the public about the mental health harms of THC.